Hey, friends, welcome to Backchannel. I am not Hal. I am not your pal Hal. I am Hal's pal Robert, filling in for Hal today, keeping the seat warm for him for one day. He'll be back tomorrow. Fear not, don't log off. You're listening and watching and thinking and hopefully contributing on Backchannel. My name is Robert Milazzo. I'm sitting in, and I am right. See, I am a pal of Hal. And if Hal's your pal, let's do the math. Then we can be pals here for the next 2 hours. We can tell people we met at a mall. That's the excuse I use when I meet people through internet ventricles. I say, yeah, we met at the mall. Then I have to find a mall that actually is open and working. Welcome to Backchannel. This is the only place you can, that I know of, and I get around. This is the only place from 12 hours. Let's think of it, from 6 a.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern every day. You could see live shows, 2-hour shows. And what I love about it, and I'm a little biased maybe because I work here, is that you can contribute. How do you contribute? We're going to talk about that because there's myriad ways. One way is through these devices. What is a device? A device is a kind of peccadillo, a human peccadillo, but it's also a piece of hardware. This is a device. See, I have a device. And you may have a device. You may have a different size device. My device has a screen on it so I could see me potentially. This is my speaker so I can hear me potentially, or Hal, of course, my favorite show. I tell that to all the shows. So you will contribute by talking to your device. What a brave new world we live in, Aldous. And the way to do it is go to your device, say, and then whatever you want to say. It can be a comment, a question. A few that come to mind is, say, I know Hal Rudnick, and you, sir, are know Hal Rudnick. So that's an example of a statement, not a question in there. You can ask a question. Say, Rob, what's your favorite Super Bowl commercial? What? It's a great thing you asked, by the way, because we're going to be talking about Super Bowl and Super Bowl commercials with an expert and me later in the show in hour 2. That's what we call a tease. So anyway, that's stroke one of how to contribute. You talk into your device. You can also do it online because these stream out live to YouTube. Just get in the YouTube chat and say what you want to say, ask what you want to ask. I will try to integrate and weave it in, or you can go to something called backchannel.tv. That's a really cool interface because it literally says, click in here. I've never visited it, but I've seen it quickly in passing in a dream. And if you go there, it's really easy conduit to chat and contribute. And I'm going to work it in. I'm looking at people who are already watching and listening, and I'm really excited. I'll tell you why. Before we get to the meat of today's show, going to have a fun show for you today. Your pal Hal, Rob, your pal Rob, in for Hal. Get it? See that? It's going to take a minute. I'm looking at people. Deborah from California is with us, and Verona from New Hampshire. What a cool name. B from Washington. I need a letter, like RM, ice or cubed ice. I always wanted like a cool name like cubed ice, like Ice Cube, iced tea. How about cubed ice? That's not taken. Andrea or Andreas from Florida is here. Florida. Bella, Northern Virginia. Cole from South Carolina, beautiful state of South Carolina. And I'm seeing Jennifer Lopez from New York. Now, tell me it's Jenny from the block that rides the 6 train. Please tell me, Jennifer Lopez. Please lie to me. Tell me you have a rom-com coming up with one of the Wilson brothers. Please tell me that's you who's watching. We also have someone from Florida. David is with us. David, where are you in Florida, my friend? First time on the show. Welcome. Again, I'm going to take your comments and kind of weave them, respond to them. So throw them at me. Another person who's really interested in your comments and throwing things at me is our ubiquitous evergreen, like the mailman, never takes a day off, never takes a day on, now that I think of it. Producer Travis is with us today. My first question, hey, Travis, jump on.
Hey!
Hey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You're really loud. Are you this loud in person, or is this just the way the internet perceives your personality?
I've been told a few times in my life to keep it down, but
Yeah. Don't play ball in the house. That's what they said to Marsha Brady before she broke her nose. But
that's right.
Here's my question to you. Did you legally change is your last name Travis or your first name Travis? That's what I don't quite get. Like producer Travis, do you go to like Ralph's now in LA and people say, "Hey, it's producer Travis." What is your Christian name? What is your given name?
Given name is Travis Reeves. That is my last name is Reeves. Reaves.
Okay. Look, man, we don't have to go micro on this. Just
All
tell
right.
me, are
So I
you
was born in Concord, California, January 14th, at 8:32 p.m. I
the
believe.
mean streets of Compton? Compton is, I mean,
Oh no, Concord,
oh,
California.
okay. Sorry, man. That's how rumors get started. So you're still producer Travis, and what
Mhm.
did you do this weekend? Did you buy more sound blankets? Because I know that's a hobby of yours. Rob Schaefer is saying, "Nice to meet you, Rob." Oh, thank you. Hey, Rob. Rob to Rob. Got it. Secret handshake. Got it.
Yeah.
And he's saying hi to Travis. Grass puddle. Man, I got to get in on this name thing. Just says woo. I love that. Just onomatopoeia. I want to change my name to blah. Anyway, what did you do this weekend besides sound blankets? What did you do? Anything
Besides sound
interesting?
blankets, oh boy, my weekend was mighty tall. I spent 11 hours recording drums for a friend's band on Saturday. We
Wow.
did 7 songs. Honestly, it went pretty quickly. I figured we were going to get out of there in about a tight, maybe 6, 7 hour session. And then as it goes, the last thing you have to do took 8 times as long as it should have. And yeah.
Well, drums are a gateway drug in many ways. Look at Tommy Lee. You see what
Oh yeah.
happened to him.
Oh yeah.
And now he's a Hulu movie of the week. Did
Yeah.
you see that? They're doing that. I think Seth Rogen and Nick Offerman, like real people, are involved.
Yup. Sebastian Stan is playing Tommy Lee, and I can't remember who's playing Pamela Anderson.
Can I ask you one quick question before we get back to the show of shows?
Yeah.
Your pal Hal, Robert, my name sitting in for your pal Hal.
Hmm.
So we're pals. How's your arthritic condition? Like, do drummers get some form of arthritis? Are you okay with your hands and wrists?
That's a
Or
really good question.
now that I'm asking it, are you worried all of a sudden? Did I just make you worried?
No. This is actually a pretty you've asked a unique person. I was not doing the drumming. I was merely engineering the session. So I was, setting up microphones and going, that was good or that wasn't. Let's do that again or whatever. I'm primarily a guitar player and I have played drums for a while as well, but I have been pretty much a perfect picture of health up until July 2019. I got hit by a car and everything went just topsy turvy after that. And I've been through actually a pretty interesting 2 year trip trying to figure out why it still hurts to play any instruments. And
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty much I'm rounding third on it, and I think we're gonna be okay. But uh, I am fine.
Well,
I think.
leave that to the experts.
Yeah.
This is what I would call a very special your pal Hal. Uh, Alex just joined the stream for the first time. Welcome, Alex. Welcome to Backchannel. This is what we would call a very special your pal Hal. I mean, I'm a little older than you, not much, like a week or two, but
Yeah.
that's a joke.
I remember you in the
The
into
dispensary
order.
where all the
Yeah, the
babies are.
dispensary.
The place, the incubator. I think like
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. Man, I wish that was true.
Uh,
But anywho, I remember sitcoms used to have a very special Good Times, a very
yeah.
special Different Strokes when Arnold. And I'm not making light of this. There was an episode of sexual abuse of children. I'm not making light of that. I'm just saying it was really
Right.
interesting when sitcoms used to carry this sort of sociological water,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Absolutely.
Um, so next time I want to bring the room down and the show to a screeching halt, I'm going to call on you. Is that okay?
Oh,
Because
please! I've got a million of them. It's been a year. No. I'm okay. I'm okay. The punchline is the nervous system is an amazing thing, capable of both great and terrible feats of confusion. That doesn't make any sense, but I'm gonna be fine. I've learned a lot about the way the human body works, and because of that, I'm much healthier for it in the long term.
well, we're the better for it. And in all
Oh yeah.
seriousness, I hope you're well. I don't know you very
Thank
well,
you.
but what I know, I should be polite to. So I hope you're well, and welcome to your show, as I like to say it. Now sit back and relax. Right, R.I.P. Travis. Uh, Rock on in the Peace Corps. I don't
Well,
think
that's
it's
bad
like
news.
exactly. Talk about sobriety at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
West Coast, 2 p.m. East Coast.
Darn.
You do the math. So
I just
looking
got
at the
Shyamalan.
looking at the guts of the show, he's got another show. Can somebody like take his finger away from the send button of the email? He has another show.
Pitch docs.
His imprimatur still matters, and I don't get that. Why does M. Night Shyamalan's name carry a buzz? But look, man, that could be like a whole series of shows. But
Yeah.
it just drives me kind of crazy. But he has another one coming out. Like it's just kind of like, Alan Smithy to me. I don't know if you know who Alan Smithy is. You
No.
shouldn't, because Alan Smithy is a word or a director that anytime a film goes sideways and
Hmm.
south and
Hmm.
no one wants their name on it, they put Alan Smithy.
Oh
An
no.
Alan Smithy film. So there's actually a funny, not so funny, but there's a film called an Alan Smithy film, which is all about this concept. But if you see a movie directed by Alan Smithy, stay away. Now, for me, it makes me run toward the movie because I like bad
Okay.
movies. I'm in that place in my life. And today we're going to talk about good movies with a good guest who knows things.
Ooh,
Yeah, in the first hour. We have guests. I'm teasing it up today.
this is great.
Travis, what do you feel about that, man? Are you excited to have some guests? I know you had one Friday, but are you excited about today?
Yeah, we in fact had Rob Schaefer, our friend in the chat here, attorney at law.
Wow, is he related to Rob Schneider? Because I know he's fallen on hard times.
I don't
Sorry,
think
different.
so. I
That's a
think
different
usually you have
Rob.
to have the same last name. But Rob Schneider is the father of singer Elle King, who had that massive hit X's and O's back in like 2011 or something like that.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you want to
Yeah.
switch positions? Like I should be ensconced in sound blankets.
I'm just here to lob facts. That's my job.
Hey man, thank you. I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up on the show. I travel a lot. I'm very fortunate. And I travel through my work because I'm not at peace enough to actually travel for vacation. But when I travel a lot, keep your comments to a minimum. Or actually, if you're listening, please keep them to a maximum by saying to your device, Rob, you have to say the word say. Sorry. Say, Rob, where have you traveled recently? Well, I actually traveled a lot this year. Don't hate me, Joe Rogan. Or actually, Joe Rogan would like me. We're not going to talk about Joe Rogan today. That would be a whole week of shows that lead absolutely nowhere. But this year I was in. This is fascinating. I'm sure to many of you listening. I went to Hawaii. I went to L.A. I
Ooh.
went to Lisbon, and I only say that not to kind of brag. I'm fortunate. They're all work based, but one of the things I like to get into conversations, cultural conversations with people I'm traveling with, and talk about holidays. I know that doesn't sound like I hate holidays, and that's why I'm kind of interested in how other people view holidays. And it made me think about coming in today's show on a Monday, the last day of January. Travis,
Hmm.
where did the month go? Um, don't answer that, Travis. You're watching the show, right? Okay, just
Right
checking.
now? Oh yeah.
Um, are you so enraptured in the show that sometimes responding is not even an option? I love that.
Yeah, and it takes my breath away.
I travel and I talk about holidays, and it made me think about unofficial holidays. This may not be a concept that leaps out at you, but I'm thinking of, oh, thanks, Grass Puddle.
I
Oh,
think
cool.
Grass
Grass
Puddle is
Puddle gets around
still.
too.
Yeah, he's in Grass Puddle. If you could remind me, are you first off, where were you or are you and are you still there? We'll chime in there. I
As
think he's been in
as
South
Grass Puddle
America.
collects, you just asked the man five, or I don't know if it's a man, but you asked our audience five different questions. Allow me to go on and we can weed the answers in. But um, I always think in the U.S. we have two unofficial holidays, and one is Lima, Peru. Grass Puddle was in. I was in Lima. Really like amazing ceviche in Lima. Really great people, super sweet population, and a beautiful city, a coastal city. Anyway, next time we'll talk about Lima. Enjoy your month there, Grass Puddle. I just like saying Grass Puddle as much as it's like Mud Honey, like a
Ha!
band I need to start and play in a black box somewhere. But
Nice.
so unofficial holidays, two I always zero in on for the US. One is waned, and we're going to talk about that in our first hour, which are the Oscars, kind of a weird unofficial holiday. And we'll talk about that with our first guest. We have an expert. I was going to say that's French, but I don't think there's a letter X in the alphabet of the French alphabet. That's a
Huh.
joke. I love France. No, it may be true. I don't think I've heard X in a word, in a French word, but we'll circle back to that. The other unofficial holiday is the Super Bowl, and yeah, it's Monday after the day or the NFL has two teams now competing for a Super Bowl. We know who these are. Now, why should you care? I guess that's kind of the question. I'm a sports fan. Full disclosure, I'm a huge sports fan. I know Hal is too. And we have a lot of laughs talking about sports and sports media. We're going to talk about sports media today. because we have a really great guest in the second hour to talk about sports media. He is truly an expert in the field. Yes, again, amen to the ceviche in Lima. And the shrimps are huge. And another thing about ceviche in Lima, the corn. Order corn. You've never seen big kernels of corn. Literally, the kernels are delicious. They're very mild tasting for those of you who don't like corn, but they do taste like corn as they are corn. Anyway, more on corn never. So the other unofficial holiday is the Super Bowl. And why I call it the official holiday is, there's all these kind of satellites around the Super Bowl in the sense of, you know, people have to watch it. It's almost like the football during Thanksgiving. People who never touched a football, and it's going to sound a little raw an idea, but I'm going to circle back because I kind of feel sorry for people who are stuck at a Super Bowl party and who are kind of forced to play the part of sports viewers. My mom comes into watching the game yesterday with my dad, and my mom comes in, who's winning? And I love my mom, but she comes in 42 times. Like, I don't need that in my life. Like, I don't need, you know what I mean? I don't need Vox Populi, but Super Bowls kind of magnetized the Vox Populi because they are an unofficial holiday. Davey is joining the stream. We have a David and a Davey. Oh, I like that. That I can memorize that. I can get down with that. Davey's in Texas. So I get all at sixes and sevens about the Super Bowl. We're going to launch into the Super Bowl treatise in hour two. Hour one, the other unofficial holiday, which has kind of waned. And now that it's waned as a holiday, I'm a little melancholy about it. So we're going to talk about that. The other unofficial holiday is the Oscars. Travis, or I know you work in media, different arts, music is your jam, so to say, but are you a Oscar-ite? Do you like, oh, the Oscars, I should watch it? I mean, has that ever been a tattoo in your mind to watch the
It's
Oscars?
funny. I love that phrase. I hadn't been until I moved into a house that had some real film heads in it, and the past couple years, it has been more of a more of a regular thing. Last year even was my first real like Oscars watch party.
Well, I was thinking about the Oscars for two reasons. Today, no, tomorrow, and I'm going to ask our guest if he's cast his vote.
Mm.
Tomorrow, the Oscar nominations are due. The ballots are due. So I'm going to ask him. I don't know if he can tell us who he's voted for. Do you guys,
Ooh.
the audience, fair audience, loyal audience, are you Oscar watchers, listeners, lookers, likers, haters? Throw it into the chat. But I was thinking about the Oscars because Sundance ended yesterday, and you talk about something that may have gone the way of the dodo, the Sundance Film Festival. So I'm going to lay it out really quickly to you as we're approaching our first guest. Travis, have you ever been to Sundance Film
No,
Festival?
I have not.
The way you said it just engenders
Go to
what.
Utah in February? You crazy? It's freezing.
Look, we need the Utah audience in the chat, so that's A. Do not do that to Utah. And another thing, and I'm not fighting for Utah here, but um, I I actually think Utah is one of our most beautiful states, and there are other equally beautiful, more beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. It's all subjective, but I just think we forget how beautiful it is. However, to your point, I was at Sundance. Since you asked, Travis, thanks for asking.
Hmm.
I have been to Sundance. I was only at Sundance once. I believe it was 2014, 2015, and it snowed. But you got to think of it this way, Travis. This city, this town knows how to handle snow, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
So if it's going to snow at Sundance, the show will go on. The dance will dance. Do you understand? Uh, but more to the point of today, it was kind of the highs and lows of anything. I mean, it was fascinating to kind of be there for the energy of film or art, those kind of things. But it was also kind of depressing. We'll get to the depressing a little bit before we bring our guest in. Great
Hmm.
segue for guests, by the way. That's guest booking 101. Depress the audience before you bring in the
Bring
guest.
him down so they can bring him up. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like a plebe, it's like a plebe. Yes, grass puddle, mountain views around Provo, Ogden. Really, Utah's the jam. Travis, are you roomies with Frank and Beth? I'm not sure what that means. You maybe want to discuss that privately in the
Oh,
chat.
Rob
Are you?
Schaefer. In fact, yes, I am. Roomies with Frank and Beth, two people who compete on the or compete and work on the movie trivia Schmodown, of which Hal is a competitor on.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
the
that's a
what a
lot to unpack.
tangled web we weave.
Well, and we'll talk about tangled webs when we talk about the Super Bowl a little later, and I will reveal my favorite Super Bowl commercial. And
Ooh.
it hasn't left my mind since then. And I think you're going to be with me on this horror of a Super Bowl memory. But um, I wonder if Sundance is still relevant, I guess, is my question. And I want to kind of lay that out right to our guests. Because of the how film has been decentralized, forget the fact that meetings um, have been like waxing and waning, obviously, since COVID. Things open, things close. Sundance actually this year went all online. They were going to do a hybrid event. And I think a week before the event, which is kind of tight, they
Hmm.
pulled the plug. They pulled the plug. So, Travis, I don't know, what do you think of the concept of an online film festival? Is that an oxymoron? I mean, online film festival. Isn't a film festival for like you to walk through and talk through and smell popcorn
So
amidst?
I've never been to Sundance, but I used to work for Tesla, and they would send a couple of people every year out to Sundance to act as a taxi service for, everybody who was attending the festival to take them from hotels to various theaters to various venues.
Yeah.
And the impression I got from my coworkers that went there and drove like the indie film community and small studio community around was that remote Sundance will never work because half the fun of Sundance is getting absolutely blasted in the snow.
Well, I just want to pause on that for a second. Um, the film festival, Sundance Film Festival, is interesting. It started in Salt Lake City, which you would
Right.
imagine. It started, I think, as it was called the Utah U.S. Film Festival. It wasn't called Sundance. It's called the Utah
Hmm.
U.S. Film Festival. Robert Redford did not start it. This is a little bit of a misnomer.
Huh.
A couple of people who he ended up working with did. Redford was the first chairman of the festival or whatever.
Oh.
He liked it so much that in 1981, so 1978, the Utah Film Festival starts. Toon Dan is here. Debbie, Toon Dan,
Oh,
thanks for
tuned in,
joining.
tuned in. That
Tuned
is
in. Oh
that
my
is my
God.
mom. That's my mom.
Oh my gosh. Debbie, can we talk a little bit off chat, off
Oops.
show? Can we? I just have a few questions that have been bothering me since Travis came aboard. But sorry, Debbie.
Wouldn't be the
Can I
first
just call
time.
you Toon Dan? But anyway, no. Sorry, Aaron is here as well. Be that as it may, one of the things, just before we get to our guests in the
Hmm.
next few moments, one of the reasons Redford moved it to Park City is that it wasn't a blue area. You could drink. For most of Utah, that you couldn't drink at certain appointed times and days. So I'm not saying that was his motivation. I mean, it's a different place. All the topography is very different, but I
Hmm.
just find it interesting. There is an alcoholic thing in here, but also, so Redford renamed it as Sundance because he played the Sundance Kid in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That's why it's called Sundance. But I want to know about its relevance today because it just concluded, and you can also hear the sound of one hand clapping because I don't know if people care anymore, and it's morphed over the years. We want to talk about that with our first guest. We're also going to talk about if he goes, if who goes, and all that kind of stuff. So interesting, Sundance I went, and the year I went, and I'll leave it at this before we get to our guest. The thing I really liked about it is the fans, and this goes back to something you were saying, Travis. The fans, I was on. They have these buses, they're not elaborate systems of buses, but
Hmm.
really well timed buses that bring you to theaters and to different venues.
Hmm.
Azalea from Virginia is new. I love that name. I love people who are named it with flowers, like
Yeah.
Daisy. April isn't a flower. That's a month, but I like April too. Rose. Anyway, I have an Aunt Rose. Anyway, since you asked, um, I was so inspired by people who had come from different parts of the country who had nothing to do with the industry, who were on the vans looking at, I want to see this movie. It was beautiful. It was like what a festival should be. And you had to wait early to get tickets. There was this real cinema love to it, and I loved that because I had grown cynical around 1994, 1995, which I'll talk about with our guest today. So the less interesting part of my time at Sundance is the keynote speech was actually really interesting. It was Robert Redford talking to George Lucas.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but I couldn't get in, and that pissed me off. Honestly, I
I'm
mean, maybe
sorry.
it's okay. Well,
Was it a
unless
matter
you
of capacity, or were they like you're not on the list?
wait, are you sorry because you had something to do with it? Let's just back that up a little bit. No?
No. No.
Okay, that's ambivalent. Alex from North Carolina is here, is new. We have new people, we have old people, not chronologically. I'm sure you're as fresh as the day you were born. I'm just saying geographically. So, right, I heard a snort. I'm interested in the bittersweet of Sundance, but also the bittersweet of the Oscars, because it
Hmm.
used to be this unofficial holiday. But the joke is, people in other countries, oh yeah, uh, okay, like no one really cared. But I'm just saying today's theme or leitmotif are unofficial U.S. holidays. Hour one, we're going to talk movies and the Oscars and Sundance. Hour two, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, because this idea that their appointment, but one is no longer an appointment. Super Bowl is kind of is like getting your heart rate checked. You should do it. It's a smart idea. Like, I want to meet people who don't tune in. I like those people. I'm going to tune in, but I'm one of those ironic fans who's still a fan, but I don't like forcing people to eat at the same trough. That's a weird mixture of metaphors. Travis, how dare you text me to say that? Okay. um Rob Schaefer is saying one of my favorite law partners has a house in Sun Valley and is neighbors with Redford. Now, Rob, dropping is only reserved for the hosts. Okay, is
Look,
that
this
was not?
guy, you're gonna have to get used to Rob Schaefer dropping facts that floor you. This guy's lived a life.
Yeah, but I get that. Marty joined the stream. Thanks, Marty. I get facts. I'm all about facts now more than ever. But name dropping, it's like it's metadata. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I understand that was the premise.
Yeah,
Um,
metadata is great. It helps you categorize people into where you should, where they belong. At
right.
least in
So
iTunes.
or your Spotify, or your Neil Young,
Yeah.
or Joni Mitchell. Travis is gonna go get our guest, who I think is in the neighborhood, and we're gonna talk. Travis, just let me know when they're there, because introductions are one of my favorite things to do. Introductions and compliments are kind of a lost art. So you just tell me when he's ready, and I'll tee this up a little bit.
Owen, I
Um,
believe, is with us now, and I could go fetch him imminently whenever you're ready.
yeah, just wrap a sound blanket around you, and if you can get him, that would be amazing. You can't have enough sound blankets. So today, I wanted to bring in someone who knows Sundance, even if he, again, this weird verb, attended or not attended Sundance. But I wanted to talk about movies and this concept of where the Oscar goes, and also maybe see what he's looking forward to seeing. So if any of these thoughts ring bells or trip wires, drop them into the chat, and I'll work them in as Travis goes away and gets our guest. So, you know, with Sundance, what's interesting also is we're talking. The headline of Sundance isn't my personal experience of it, because I'm a cynical guy. I did go and I did watch some movies, and I was more interested in the human traffic of Sundance. I thought that was really interesting. Again, seeing people on these vans, like setting alarms to buy tickets, and it was like a racing form. It was like being at OTB. I don't know if you know what OTB is, off track betting, but it was, their film programs were like racing cards. I want to see this movie. So it was really the essence of movie love, and I think we've lost that in many ways. I mean, the Oscars are kind of arguably not movie love. They're movie work. We'll talk about that. Or they're the job. We'll talk about that. Although people at the ceremony may beg to differ. Uh, Bury the lead. I just can't watch the Oscars. I stopped watching, I believe it was 1995, 94, 95, and I'll talk about why to our guest. But um, it, it, it's really a kind of must do thing, and people who are there find themselves fascinated. I just can't watch it. I can't watch things self congratulations on that scale. I can't. Um, are you going to watch the Oscars? Drop it in the chat. Do you know when the Oscars are? Maybe you're that type of person who like clears the date. Now, this concept of today, two unofficial holidays, there's always this kind of anecdotal noise, like we should not have work the next day, or if your team's in the Super Bowl, you can call in sick. Or, I mean, the Oscar parties, by the time the Oscar party is over, you're asleep. Not to even get into how darn long those things are, but a Super Bowl party, by the time it's over, you're probably dancing on a tabletop with a Chiefs helmet on, or not this year, Bengals helmet on, and no pants. Grass Puddle said the last Oscars Grass Puddle watched had Billy Crystal. You know, they're they want to host again this year. They want to the Oscars wants to bring back a host, because for many years they didn't have a host. I think the last host was 2016. I want to say Jimmy Kimmel, Seth MacFarlane, one of those, Chris Rock or someone that seem to do a good job, but I think they went host free, and they want to bring back hosts in like they're talking about three hosts. They're talking. I heard Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. That about checks every box of I'm not going. I'm not watching that I can think of. I love Steve Martin and I love Martin Short, and I'm sure Selena Gomez has some talent and all that. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but I mean, golly, I wasn't there for the wedding. I'm not going to go to the funeral. Like that's kind of my philosophy. I know, the Oscars started doing this duo hosting. Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin. I guess people loved. I like the bad hosts. I mean, if I know there's going to be a really bad host, like if Anne Hathaway and what's it, James Franco come back, I may actually show up. Letterman, who was as dry as a piece of wheat toast without butter, I would watch that. Seth MacFarlane, who pissed people off, I would watch that. So, um, anyway, I want to talk without cynicism to our first guest. He was gracious enough to be on the show with us today. He is the chief film critic for Variety and the author of a really great memoir that I've read called Movie Freak. He was also the head film critic for Entertainment Weekly for 24 years. My gosh, I haven't done much for 24 years consecutively. He grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Went to Michigan, so he's a hometown guy, makes good. He lost it at the movies with a woman named Pauline Kael. I want to get to the bottom of this. I don't know if his wife knows that he lost it at the movies with Pauline Kael. I did too. So if it's any consolation, please welcome to Backchannel to your pal Hal, filling in for Hal, Robert Milazzo. Please welcome Owen Gleiberman. Owen, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you, Rob? Thanks
Good.
for
Can
having
you
me
hear?
on.
Oh, you're welcome. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Does your wife know you lost it at the movies with someone named Pauline Kael? Is that
No,
public knowledge?
she totally does. She totally does, and she's okay with it. Pauline, Pauline is a person that a lot of people, especially under a certain age, haven't even heard of, and I won't bore anyone with it. But she was the greatest film critic. But more than that, I mean, Pauline Kael is, I think, hugely influential on so much writing, so much journalism today, so much of the kind of writing you see online, what we used to call years ago blogs, but just the kind of writing and sensibility and even snark that people do, the way we communicate on social media or whatever. You hear Pauline Kael behind a lot of that because she was at once so brilliant and so much fun as a writer. I mean, she was just ruthlessly honest, ruthlessly funny, ruthlessly perceptive, and all those things combined her to make her a great critic. And she's the reason that I wanted to become a film critic.
What I love about her also is, and by the way, I don't, pardon me, my awful memory. I don't know if you're in the documentary on Pauline, what she said, but it's a really great
I'm not in that
documentary.
film. Yeah,
It, it,
I,
it's
I
great.
reviewed that. I reviewed that film, and I think it is absolutely superb. I'm not in it for an interesting reason, which is that they talked to a great range of people, and I had known Pauline Kael early in my career. She helped get me started, but I kind of fell out with her in the sense that you kind of had to, if you were a friend of Pauline's, you really had to kind of go with her and her opinions or not. There
Yeah.
wasn't really a
Yeah.
middle ground. And I always believed in Pauline and her opinions, but I had my own opinions. If anything, standing up for yourself, whatever anyone else believes, is what I learned from Pauline Kael, and that forced me to finally say no. I'm not going to be your acolyte. I'm not going to be your toady who always supports you when you like this Brian De Palma film that no one else does. I couldn't play that role, and so I was kind of on the outs with Pauline and her followers, and so the people who made that movie didn't want to interview me for that, and that's fine. But they did it. They did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to make you feel bad.
No,
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 no.
no. It's all's fair in all these things, and it's funny that kind of mutual respect. I was thinking about Robert Altman, or any number of, let's say, film artists or human beings or artists. Like it's you're in or you're out. I'm not saying it was that draconian. I'm just saying, their own pride, irrespective to your own singularity is an emblem of their own singularity, and it doesn't you can't duo that. I'm being strangely opaque about it, but I understand. Like a friend of mine worked with Robert Altman, and he said once you fell out of favor, that was it.
Well,
Or
a grand irony in all this, although this is kind of a footnote, is that Pauline, who was Robert Altman's greatest supporter as a critic,
yes,
Rob, she had a falling out with Altman after she didn't like one of his films. He was just like, "That's it." this is this person who had written, poetic reviews of his films and had done much to establish him. So it just shows you how petty people can get. But I want to say one more thing about Pauline. I discovered her I'm about 1,000,000 years old, so this is about 1,000,000 years ago. But no, I'm kidding. This is the late 70s that I got onto Pauline. And I sort of fell in love with her writing for a million reasons. She was the greatest just critic of film. She could capture a movie on the page, 1,000 other things about her. But one of the things, the kind of spine that ran through Pauline Kael's writing is that she was such a fearless individual. She always said exactly what she thought. Even way back when, I was very attracted to that side of her because I guess I always believed that's what we should be, not just as writers, but as human beings. We should be ourselves. We shouldn't be lemmings. And I feel like now we are in a lemming era. We're in an era where people look for their niches, they look for the person to follow, and they follow. We're almost in an era of cults in a certain way. And I don't just mean the cult of Donald Trump, although that's one of the cults I'm talking about, but I think there are cults on the left as well. And, Pauline to me stood against all of that. And I find that spirit, to an extent has kind of disappeared from film criticism. I don't think film criticism is a landscape of ruthless individuality anymore.
Well, it's also interesting. Those were, to me, halcyon days of filmmakers and critics tussling a little bit. There's some value in. There's a great value in that. I find there's a great value, and I respect the craft and the work that critics do. It's extraordinary. But I think, now I'm not talking about a filmmaker who will categorically dismiss critics. Like, I've read Ridley Scott. I don't care what like that's kind of. But I'm just talking about mixing it up, like verbally, and becoming friends with someone that you find you differ. That's the beauty of discourse and information. So I think the avatar of discourse or cultology or prisoner of the momentism. I'm not saying it started with criticism, but I do think there's something about this concept of one-way dialogue now. Everything's rhetoric. Everything. Twitter is the ultimate rhetoric. Instagram, we embrace rhetoric, and it's crushed rhetoric, because rhetoric used to be a tool. Now it's like it's tabula rasa. Sorry.
Well, I think you're right. I think everyone is struggling to be heard, and the grand paradox is that the only way to be heard in this culture now is to follow. If you follow and you join this group saying this thing, then your little voice will be heard. But if you are just, one lone voice kind of pissing in the wilderness, no one's going to hear you. And so no one wants to be that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so honored that you're here, Owen. And I want to get to some big topics with you, sort of big, chronological topics. Do you have your Oscar ballot filled in yet? Are you a voter?
No. The journalists are not voters in the Oscars. That's all the industry.
It can't. Is that always been the way? Has there ever been a pushback on that?
Well, I think one of the things that's often misunderstood about the Oscars were launched whenever it was in the 30s, late 20s, I can't remember, late 20s, I think. The Oscars were launched quite specifically to be a kind of advertisement for the movie industry. They weren't taken very seriously by the people who put them together. It was like an expo almost. And then it got televised and became a bigger and bigger thing. But I think the essential thing to understand about the Oscars is that they never stopped being an advertisement for the industry. I would almost want to say that's what they should be. And someone might say, well, do you really think that? Do you really think they should be just an advertisement for the industry as opposed to, say, truly picking, the greatest movies, the best movies, the way that, say, the National Society of Film Critics tries to do or whatever? I would say, yes, in my perfect world, as I design the world, there should be some big ceremony on television that's watched by 8 billion people around the globe that picks just the very best movies. Sure, that sounds great. When I say that I don't think that's what the Oscars should be, I mean that that's never what they have been. And in a sense, structurally, economically, that's not really what they are or what they can be. They are an advertisement for the industry that hopefully also honors some people and some achievements that are worth honoring. I personally think the Oscars now are skewing way too much in the direction of sort of following critics, which they never really did before.
What do you mean? What do you mean following critics?
Well, if you look at the kinds of movies that in all likelihood, will be nominated, the 10 nominees for Best Picture this year. I don't have a crystal ball. This is all going to be happening a week from tomorrow. But if they mirror the Producers Guild nominees, the Producers Guild nominees were quite striking. These are producers. I mean, directors and screenwriters and actors are creative people, but producers, I mean, they can also be creative people, but they're producers. They're the money people. And here you have the producers voting for 10 movies, and there was one hit on that list.
Right.
Dune. Now, some people would argue, Don't Look Up is a hit because Netflix said that it got more eyeballs or people logged more hours than there are stars in the galaxy. Yeah, but it actually didn't log that many more hours than The Irishman did. And I don't remember anybody talking about The Irishman in these terms. This is partly, yes, I think there was a lot of attention to that film, a lot of buzz on it, a lot of eyeballs on Netflix. But that's not the same thing as Don't Look Up coming out in theaters and making $100 million. That didn't happen. So you basically have one hit, Dune, on that slate of producers' movies, along with films like The Power of the Dog and Licorice Pizza, and movies that were not really mainstream movies. And by my argument too, it's one thing if these were all great works of art that were not as big as Star Wars, but I think a lot of the movies that were nominated are not particularly good. That's just my own taste. So you have the Oscars becoming almost purified in terms of their taste, but losing the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this has been the story, and I think it's going to continue to be the story. Let me throw out just the names of 3 mainstream movies that the producers could have nominated or the Oscars could nominate that might have helped, that might have made it seem like a little more mainstream event. One of these movies happens to be close to my heart. The 3 movies are Spider-Man: No Way Home, No Time to Die, and House of Gucci. House of Gucci was the one film that was put out there as a quote-unquote awards film that actually is a hit. Now, of course, the whole critical media establishment completely turned up their nose at this film, which shocked me because I saw it before any of that happened, and I loved it. I think it's a terrific film. It has a sort of trashy element, obviously, but I also think it's a serious movie. It is sort of like a tabloid version of The Godfather or something. It doesn't take itself that seriously, but I don't think it's just a piece of camp trash. I think it tells a very, very interesting story. I think it's very well acted. People made fun of the accents, like, oh, the whole idea that they're speaking in Italian accents as opposed to speaking Italian is absurd. Well, no one said that about the character of Hans Landa in Inglourious Bastards. He was speaking English in a German accent. What's the difference? People were just going after this film. I think the idea that House of Gucci, after making $50 million, getting all the attention it did, can't be one of the 10 Oscar nominees. If that is the case next Tuesday, I think that is reflective of an Oscar sensibility now that is maybe getting a little too snobby for its own good.
We're here on Backchannel with Owen Gleiberman. It's a hard thing because in a way, because movies are infinite in a sense, and bear with my idea here for a second, that, and this isn't a criticism, pardon the word choice, I just don't have a better one. It's how many movies can one watch? What are the movies that are in the mix? And I'm not talking, obviously there's too many movies, but what do the Oscars, what are they the advocates for? What kind of, they're not for movies. That's almost on its face inaccurate. They're for a certain kind of movie. They have to be, because
they can be, if I can stop you for a second, they can be for a number of different kinds of movies and the Oscars have sort of stretched and evolved over the last 30 years. They stretched with the indie movement in a way that I thought was quite healthy, where in 95 or so, around the time you said that you got disenchanted with them. But, when you started to have movies like Fargo nominated or whatever, and a lot of indies, you had indies, you also had mainstream Hollywood movies. There was a mix, which is something I completely believe in because I think that's reflective of people's taste. I don't believe the Oscars should be any one thing or that there's one kind of Oscar movie. I think there should be big hit movies. I think there should be works of art that cross over and find a popular audience, if such a thing still exists in our culture. I think there should even be room for some smaller films that are artistic achievements and maybe we're not hits, but who cares? They have their own value. There should be room for all of that. But the thing that I think everyone's forgetting about here is we are talking about movies. It's a popular art form, and it needs to be a popular art form because that's the economics of it. If you don't have people turning out in large numbers to watch movies, you're not going to have movies because that's what finances them. This is not poetry we're talking about. And I think that the Oscars should not forget about the fact that Hollywood makes popular movies. That's what it's in the business of doing.
Yeah, and I want to back up my 1994, 1995 idea with why, and just to not go too deep down the rabbit hole. I remember Hoop Dreams was a movie I loved,
Right.
and this was when it really did matter to me what was recognized. In the sense of I think people who grew up watching movies and that Sunday night, it is we're talking about unofficial USA holidays. I think the Oscars used to be an unofficial holiday.
Oh,
Like,
I think until pretty recently, yeah.
and I want to talk maybe about that turning point, but I remember that was my first, oh my God, how could you not even nominate Hoop Dreams? Now I don't want to get into the morass of documentary nomination. That's a whole other chat, as you know. But so tell me then, before I ask you a less interesting question, when did it change? When did it not become kind of appointment watching? Is it along the lines of the decentralization of film in general, like how we watch films, where we watch films?
Oh, I think that's right. I mean, in some ways, if the Oscars really are in decline in terms of ratings, in terms of somebody's ringing my door, but
It's
um,
I hope it's not Pauline Kael's lawyer. I mean, you said only flattering
I think
things.
it's just my wife and kids. They'll be letting themselves in a second, if that's who it is. I told them stay away till 3.
Do you need to exit the frame? Because I could be fascinating in your.
No, it's fine. Let me just tell them to be.
Okay. So let me tell you a joke. Three film
Yes,
critics.
okay.
Three film critics walking. Oh, sorry, I had my film critic joke. Go on. Sorry, I'm joking. There's no joke. I was just vamping. Go on.
Oh, we were talking about. You were saying when did the falling off?
When did it
Happen?
not become like appointment? Get your food ready to watch this Sunday. Other Super Bowl. Like we're talking about the Super Bowl in hour 2. So this was kind of the other Super Bowl.
Well, what I was saying is, I think it's within the last 10 years, but I think that, in a sense, the decline of the Oscars, if that is what is happening in terms of ratings, and more to the point, in terms of just that nerve they strike in the culture, that nerve that they hit in people that makes them feel like a holiday. I don't think it's really the Oscars' fault. I think that so much of what they did has been just competed against and taken away by other things. People used to watch the Oscars 25, 35 years ago to see the stars and to see what they looked like on the red carpet and what they were wearing. Now, the show still goes through all of that, and there's still some appeal there. But the fact is, you can see stars in those kinds of situations all the time now.
Right.
It became omnipresent. So, and I'm not even saying that the Oscars shouldn't be about that. I like that aspect of the Oscars. I love the red carpet. I'm just saying that some of that is losing its little kind of singular mystique. The other thing, of course, that happened is the rise of television. The rise of television hasn't killed movies, but there is a way that, there may be more excitement about certain television shows now than there are about movies. And all of this helps the sort of attrition of the Oscars. What I'm saying is that with all of those uphill battles that the Oscars are now fighting, to throw into the mix the idea that they're not even going to try to nominate popular movies anymore, I don't think that's a good strategy. Granted, it's not a conspiracy. You have this vast sea of people who we call the members of the Academy, all voting for what they want to vote for. But on the other hand, you could make the case that there are so many movies now, nobody has a chance to keep up with all of them. I'm a full-time critic, and I scramble every week to keep up with what's coming out. That the Oscar voters, who are, overworked with their own jobs and everything, possibly they're going to watch the 23 films you're supposed to watch this year that are going to kind of cover the waterfront for the Oscars. And so it may be that they're not drawing from that big a pool of movies.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's also, I sense more snobbery in the voting than I used to. God knows the word snobbery was never anything connected with the Oscars. They were a, paralyzingly lowbrow event.
What is the snob? It's one thing, and just to throw in a user comment here, Ben from I believe is in the UK, says, talking a little bit about the presentation itself. It's endless, man. I mean, it's a long ceremony. It's top heavy. It's musical numbers, but rather than triaging the event itself, um, well, how maybe that is the question. How would you triage the event? Do you think the Oscars need a facelift? Because the snobbery thing would say it can't get one. How do you reconcile snobbery with, it's like baseball. Baseball needed to speed up at some point. How do you reconcile how the Oscars show themselves?
I was intrigued at one point with the argument that they needed to speed up or something, but I now think, and I don't necessarily think this is a snobby argument, I don't think the Oscars can have a facelift. I don't think it's possible. In some ways, in recent years, they tried to do it. A lot of the criticisms that you hear this whole litany of things every morning after the Oscars that, oh, they were so boring, the montages were boring, the musical numbers were boring. Well, they tried to streamline all that stuff down, and what happened is that they ended up with an Oscar show that seemed like a Christmas tree with no ornaments on it. I think you need all that stuff, and I don't think you're going to be able to improve it. The Oscars are supposed to be a big, vulgar spectacle that is a little too long. I think the idea of cutting off people's speeches is ridiculous. One of the things you want to see, it's a live event. You're getting to see a little bit the souls of the people in the movie industry. Let them talk. Let them show who they are. If some of them go on too long, fine. I think that idea of cutting off speeches is just offensive and wrong. But here's my ultimate point. I've never agreed with people like yourself about the Oscars, about feeling that they're too long and boring. I love the Oscars. They are too long. There are boring patches. But once a year, we sit down in our living rooms. We watch this long show that has a lot of fun moments in between some boring moments. And for the boring moments, we're with our family or our friends. We have a good drink in our hand. Who cares? Why is everyone so hung up on the idea that the Oscars at certain points are boring? I mean, most of pop culture is boring. I mean, what isn't boring? You know, I just don't. I never understand this. I think people just like to carp.
No,
Frankly.
I think I need to get some more alcohol in the cabinet and more friends for this year. Maybe that's kind of the tea leaves I'm reading.
Well, I do think the alcohol is key for the Oscars.
Well, I think you're right, and for culture in general, Owen.
Maybe so.
To wit, one thing, a couple more thoughts with Owen Gleiberman. So gracious to be here with us on Backchannel and people listening from all over the world. Thank you all. Was thinking about, pardon my metaphor, sports metaphor again. I was watching an NBA game yesterday or Saturday night, and Jeff Van Gundy, one of the announcers, was talking about the All-Star game and how often players will say, or people will say, pundits will say, the game is for the fans. Therefore, let the fans vote on who starts. Okay. So Jeff Van Gundy said something really interesting. He said, I am sick of people saying the All-Star game is for the fans. It's for the players. It's really important to the players. It can affect a contract. It can affect a career. It can affect all these things. So let's move this kind of architecture into the Oscars. Here's the simple question. Who are the Oscars speaking to? Who are they targeting? Who is their audience?
I think the simple answer is it doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, the Oscars as an entertainment event, a cultural event, a human event, a not very important event, but I think we would be a less rich culture if we didn't have things like this, because they are ultimately a testament to the fact that we really care about this art form, and art forms matter. At least that's my premise. Who are the Oscars for? They are for the movie industry, both for their egos and to advertise the industry. They are for the members of the industry who are lucky enough to be nominated and win. So, in any industry, you have awards, and that means something to the people who win them. That's just the way human life kind of operates. And they're for the fans. They're for us, not simply to have a fun night, but to see, who the industry honors, what we think of as quality. It's very flawed in that respect, but I'd still rather have it than not. I think they're for everybody. But what's happening now is that the crisis of the Oscars is really channeling the crisis of the movie industry. The movie industry is going through a kind of crisis, which is a crisis of not even the box office, but what I would call mythological relevance. Movies were a mythology for 100 years. In fact, I would argue that the story of the 20th century, or one of the stories of the 20th century, is that we lost all our religions. I mean, to a large extent, we did. We became a much more secular culture in America than had been before in previous centuries. And we needed something to fill that void because I think human beings are meant to be religious. So we had jazz and rock and roll. Those are religions. They're 100% religions. We had movies, which people saw in the theaters that were like temples or churches. We also had some pretty bad religions in the 20th century, like totalitarianism and stuff like that. But the point is, there's all sorts of religions. I think these great popular art forms have been religions, and no one would argue that for 100 years, movies meant something huge in this culture. Movies are not going away, but if they just turn into what piece of junk is on Netflix tonight, if that's what it comes down to, they've ceased to have much importance, and maybe they've ceased to have that religious element. And I find a thing I'm suspect of is that if that's the way the economic and the logistical forces and the technological forces are lining up, that we're going from a theater culture to a streaming culture, you don't necessarily want to fight the future. You don't want to necessarily be the person standing up for the horse and buggy. But I go on comment boards all the time, and I'm dismayed at the number of people I see, even movie buffs, who are like, "Oh, who needs movie theaters? I'm happy here at home," and stuff. I think people have embraced the streaming revolution with a little too much knee-jerk enthusiasm, because a lot of people, I think, are not thinking about what we're losing. The movie theater is a great experience, not just because it's communal. I go to a lot of movies by myself because I'm a critic, and because I became a critic because I'm the kind of guy who likes to go to movies by myself on a Tuesday afternoon. That's what I talked about in my book, Movie Freak, that there's a kind of pathology to that, but that's okay. That's the sort of person I am. We like to go into that dark hole, that womb-like space, and watch a movie. But my point is this: if I go on a Friday night to watch a movie with an audience, I'm having a movie experience. If I go on a Tuesday afternoon to watch a movie and there's just a handful of people in the crowd, I'm still having a movie experience. That big screen, it's not just, oh, it looks cool up there. Oh, those special effects look great. No, it's a larger than life experience. Television, less so. And I'm a little suspect of a culture that now seems all too blithely eager to kiss goodbye to its larger than life experiences.
I agree, and I would tag on to that. I think we don't do well with rituals in this country. I think, if we want to look at not the agnostic idea, but the sense of ceremonies. I think this concept of, we can't call ourselves an impatient nation, which we are, and say we do well with that kind of style and form. And there's so much more, man. Your brain is big and vast. I have one last question.
Yeah.
Thoughts in a sentence or two, and I bury the lead. I do this a lot in my life, let alone my talks. How do you tell people what you do? Do you tell them you write for Variety or Variety.com?
Oh, I always just say Variety. But in some ways, I do think of myself now essentially as an online critic. I mean, the vast majority of the pieces I write are only available online. We'll do a piece, like I'm going to do a review this week of Kenneth Branagh's film, Death on the Nile. That will be the lead review in our print section next week. But most of the reviews I just wrote 10 reviews from the Sundance Film Festival. And those were all, we had little capsules in the print edition, but those were all online only. That's increasingly, where journalism is going. And I personally like being an online critic. I like the immediacy of it. I like the fact that we don't have the same kinds of space limitations that we have in print. I think there's a certain freedom to it. Hopefully that freedom brings with it discipline, where you don't just kind of drone on. But online is where it's at.
Pauline would be proud, and go blue. And we'd love to catch up with you. Some fascinating people still call Ann Arbor home, and we'll get to that maybe in another chat. But just want to thank you. So much left on the table, which is the nature of every good conversation. Owen Gleiberman, thank you. We'll be reading, we'll be watching, and we'll be waiting. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate that.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Rob.
Didn't even talk much about Sundance, but that's the nature of good guests. Speaking of good guests, Owen Gleiberman is great, and oh man, so many saucy topics. I didn't get much of a chance to throw in some bad ideas his way. And Grass Puddle uh, is my cynical brother from another Grass Puddle, saying that the Oscars are for the industry, patting themselves on the back. That must hurt, you know. What is this pain from? Oh yeah, that's Hollywood patting itself on the back. Yeah, I think Owen is old school, and I love that about him. I love the fact that it's the grandeur, it's the dresses, and it's the kind of obesity. Pardon my word, terrible word, but it's the obesity of the thing that is part of the ride. And I think, you know, I get that. That makes sense. I just uh, and also, you know, this idea that Andrea, I'm sorry, I never get the right emphasis on the right syllable when I say Andrea or Andrea, um, is joining. Thank you so much. First time here. You know, this concept of big girthy shows is great. I mean, the concept that it does something for someone's career, I think it does two things. I think for a director, it gets you more meetings. Screenwriter gets you more meetings. Maybe designers get you more meetings. Actors may get you a few more meetings, but you know, ask Adrian Brody and Halle Berry how that Oscar is doing, or Marissa Tomei. And I'm not dissing them as talents. I'm just saying I don't think it opens many doors, but I think that first push into the meetinghood of Oscaromity. I love words. I love just making up words. Gluttony. Grass Puddle contributes the word gluttony in emoji. It's hard to it's hard to kind of figure out the kind of synergy of those words. And I think that's a laughy smiley emoji. Don't get me started on emojis, Grass Puddle. Don't go down that road. It's not going to end well for anybody. Um, eh, eh, Jimmy, sorry, Jimmy. We I'm reading names. We are going to switch from one unofficial holiday that to me is much more it's much more capricious who celebrates it. I think less people celebrate it than ever. But now we're going to look at a new religion, which is not such a new religion. It's the old religion of the Super Bowl. It is an unofficial holiday. And for some people who study the study of the Super Bowl, like who watch the watchers, like our next guest, I could imagine it's their Super Bowl or it's their kind of tax season, however you want to look at it. Today's next guest is someone that I've read even before I asked him on the show. I just think it's really cool that he's going to be here. He is an American journalist and a writer for Sports Illustrated. He writes a column, a really great, funny, smart look at sports broadcasting and other non-sports ephemera called Traina's Thoughts. He hosts the weekly Sports Illustrated media podcasts, really great. And the guests this week are going to be great as well. I think Joe Buck is coming on. He's worked for the Associated Press and for FoxSports.com. We'll forgive him those things. Oh, but most importantly than all that, The Rock follows him on Twitter. That's really the stuff of legends. Please welcome to Backchannel, to your pal Hal, Mr. Jimmy Traina. Jimmy, welcome to the show, man. You're out there.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Watching some of your stuff, your weekly chats, that white microphone always catches my eye. Now, how did Sports Illustrated get you the budget to get you a white microphone?
I have no idea. I just when COVID started, I just stole this from our studio because I knew I'd be working from home, and didn't realize I'd be working from home for 2 years when I stole this microphone from the podcast studio. But here we are.
Right. I would have taken as much stuff off Frank DeFord's desk. I don't know if he still had a desk. I would have just grabbed as much stuff as I possibly can. A couple of awards, made them my own, but that's just neither here nor there. Before we talk about either, I can't tell if it's your Super Bowl within the Super Bowl or it's your tax season. We'll get to that. But no, the more important thing is The Rock. That's really why I brought you here. Did you get a heads up he was following you? Did you get drunk when you found out?
No, I just did something that I'm not proud of at all, and
just one thing.
Was pretty, and well, one of the lowlights of my life, and it was kind of douchey. But I think it was on my birthday, like 3 or 4 years ago. I said all I want for my birthday is The Rock to follow me on Twitter, and somehow he did. So,
what are the dividends of that?
I'm sure he's muted me. I'm sure he doesn't read any of my tweets. I mean, if
What
I was him, I would definitely mute me. But
what are the
yeah, but he hasn't
dividends?
unfollowed.
Do you get like a special seat at Golden Corral? What are the dividends of having The Rock follow you?
There's been no dividends. We have exchanged DMs maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's about it. But he's very generous with um, sort of retweeting my work. He knows I'm a big fan, and he appreciates sort of the fact that Sports Illustrated covers wrestling. So he's been supportive of me, which is extremely cool.
So what's the big news from the weekend? That Super Bowl is now on the launch pad, or that the Royal Rumble had some old school feel to it? What's the big headline for you? What was more exciting for you, like as a fan?
Well, the big headline is neither of those things. It's Tom Brady retiring.
Yeah.
That's the big headline for sure. But the NFL definitely was more exciting than the Royal Rumble for me. We had 2 great games, 2 great finishes. It's been an unbelievable playoffs. Couldn't have asked for anything better yesterday, Sunday. Just the same with both games going right down. One game going overtime, and then one game going right down to about a minute and a half left.
This whole playoff run, I mean, last week, execs must be going crazy. Well, speaking of execs, how do you think the NFL, what do you think the NFL thought of that? Let's call it, I don't call it a leak, but a announcement of Brady. Do you think anyone got a call from Goodell? I mean, honestly, because you hear that a lot, right? You hear this kind of inner brake pumping of these things, and Tom is royalty, Brady is royalty, right? So how do you think the NFL thought when that was leaked?
Well, I'm sure the NFL was pissed, but nobody got a call because the NFL can't call ESPN and say, "Why did you break this?" Tom Brady didn't break this, and I think Tom Brady was probably more pissed off than the NFL that it got leaked. I don't think
Yeah.
Tom wanted this out there. Tom wouldn't want. First of all, there's a couple things. Tom wouldn't want it out there the day before the title games.
Right.
I'm sure he was saving this for either this week or maybe after the Super Bowl. So I'm sure Tom was livid, and the NFL doesn't want this out there. And I think Tom wanted to break it on his own terms. He didn't want ESPN reporters to break it. So I think the NFL was pissed. I think Tom was pissed, and it's a big window for ESPN.
And TB12 tweeted it out. That was the weird curveball, wasn't it?
Yep.
His own brand put career accomplishments.
Yes. I mean, listen, he's going to retire. It's just a matter of when he's going to announce it.
Well, wouldn't the Schadenfreude of you, maybe that's over 50% of you, I don't know. But wouldn't you like him to not and just screw ESPN? Wouldn't that be fun?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I would love nothing more than for him to announce he's coming back next
I would
year.
love
Absolutely.
that. I would
Me too.
and I want him to say it to Chris Berman or somebody who's not the good old ESPN like Steve Levy, but just like the avatars, like, you know what I mean? Just how many
the only issue there is though ESPN will just say, he flip-flopped and he was going to retire and then had a second thought or something. So
I want to talk about, there's always NFL is 12 months out of the year. All this. I want to talk a little later before we say goodbye about stuff that may be happening in the booth, stuff may not. But this next 2 weeks, and I'm joking today about force feeding people to watch sports. I'm a sports head, and I don't like force feeding like my mom to watch the game. Or
right.
I'm not that guy. I mean, talk about that a little bit. Do you wish Super Bowl was a little more kind of compartmentalized, or do you think it's like its own thing? And because look, sorry, I'm interrupting your answer, but I was thinking this morning, after the halftime, quarter 3, and you still see the smoke from the halftime show, nothing pisses me off more. Like, it's not a real game. I know we've been saying this for a year, but am I off on this? Should I just get a hobby? Like, does this bother you that it's not a real game?
I agree with everything you're saying. It doesn't bother me anymore. I've come to terms with it a long time ago that for me, the NFL season ended yesterday. That was the end of the NFL season. What happens in 2 weeks is a circus that is for people that are not me. What happens in 2 weeks is for the fringe fan. 40 million people, give or take, watch the NFL playoffs. You're going to have 100 million watching the Super Bowl.
Wow.
So you're bringing in 60 million people who don't watch the NFL. This game is not for the diehard NFL fan like myself, who's there every week from noon to midnight watching every game. That's not who the Super Bowl is for. The Super Bowl is for the people who don't watch football, and that's where those extra 60 million people come in. For football fans, the season ended yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Have you been to a Super Bowl?
I have not. No,
What?
wouldn't want to go anyway. To me, football is a television sport.
It's a TV sport. I mean, it's really, baseball and other like hockey. I think is an in-person sport. We can go through it. It's a kind of boring idea. I think NFL works well. Has SI? This isn't about Sports Illustrated, but has SI ever wanted you to go? Like,
We had a Super Bowl here in New Jersey a few years.
I remember that one. Yes,
yeah.
of course.
I mean,
Denver, Seattle.
If I pushed, maybe I could have gone even this year. I mean, I've never asked. I've never sort of threw my name out there. So, I don't know. I think if I made a hard push, they'd send me if I wanted to go that badly and made a convincing case.
NBC's handling it this year. Do you think in those terms? Because I want to get back. I want to get the next beat is about kind of who the hell watches these. Forget the 5-hour 6 ones. Like the hour shows. I mean, they're so goddamn saccharine. Like who is watching them? Like people who go on cruises for honeymoons. I just diss those people. What I'm saying is, before we get into that mess, when you think, oh, NBC has it, can you differentiate how they're going to approach it? Do you know, if I blindfolded you and took the announcers out of it, could you tell who was covering the Super Bowl?
No, it's all the same. The pregame shows are all the same. Way too many people. You already know beforehand what, there's going to be a huge, they'll say right before the game, the huge Matt Stafford feature on his wife having brain surgery and him getting out of Detroit.
I'm not laughing at that. No, I'm just.
No, I know. I'm just saying, but that's what every network is, they'll bring in, C-list celebrities from their shows that nobody watches during the week to talk about the Super Bowl. Every network does that nonsense. You'll get the Joe Burrow feature. It's all the same. It's all the same.
So who do the execs think are watching for 5 hours on the day? Who do they think are watching?
Not football fans. Again, the fringe fan who is there on Super Bowl Sunday but isn't there for the rest of the season.
Well, it's
That's
like
they're catering to.
It's like the Rose Bowl effect. You just throw the Rose Bowl parade on in the background, or you throw it's like the Thanksgiving Day parade. It's like Macy's. No one who's sane watches that. I'm sorry if you do, and I apologize, but you may want to seek treatment of some kind, because it's just like having an aquarium on in the background. But does that generate dollars for these networks?
Oh, absolutely, massive dollars, because they're going to get. NBC will get a higher rating for their Super Bowl pregame show than anything else that they would air on a Sunday afternoon.
Wow. Well, yeah, right. Which could be like skating finals from 18 years ago.
Right.
And you wouldn't know if it was 18 years ago or last month, basically. Those NBC classics.
Yeah, no, they'll make a lot of money on the pregame show.
So I want to get deeper into the Super Bowl, but is this going to be Al Michaels' last Super Bowl for NBC? Do you think he's gone?
I definitely think it is. All signs point now. I mean, all signs point to Al and NBC parting ways after Super Bowl Sunday. It was expected that Al would go to Amazon, who will exclusively carry Thursday Night Football starting next season. I have said on my podcast numerous times that if I were Al Michaels and you can get past, sort of maybe having that stigma of stealing someone else's job. If I'm Al Michaels, I can call ESPN and say, hey, NBC's kicking me to the curb. You want me for Monday Night Football? And Al would be a big upgrade over what ESPN now has for the Monday Night Football. It's not a bad telecast, but Al Michaels is still at the top of his game, so it's a huge improvement. So while Amazon is likely, and that's what's been reported, I think there could be a big twist in the saga coming.
I do too. It's interesting about that ESPN. I just don't know why they can't get that right. I'm so sorry. It's Kirk Herbstreit. It's Herbstreit and Chris Fowler. That's the team. I know I don't want to get all into the NCAA and all that stuff, but that's a team. That's a Monday night worthy team. Let's just leave it at that. We don't have to leave it at that. I love your response, but what I'm saying is we can nitpick, or not even, we could criticize them, but I just think in terms of the grandeur, this as well as I, when you like or not, when you hear Joe Buck, it's a big game. Like it or not, when you hear Al Michaels, it's a big game. I think they're the same way. I think Fowler and Herb Street are the same way. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure. I think Herb Street's. They've done a couple of NFL games. I think Herb Street's
Yeah.
been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think ESPN has sort of done the current booth a disservice by putting 3 men in the booth. I think it should be 2 at all times. 3 is too many. ESPN is always going to get screwed with their schedule. They're just not going to get. They're going to get the 4th or 5th best game every week, just because the best game always goes to Sunday night. Sunday 4:25 Eastern. That's always the best game. Sunday night gets the 2nd best game. Thursday night gets the 3rd best game. So Monday night is left with the 4th best game. Not a great schedule. 3 men in the booth is way too many. And ESPN wants to still think that Monday Night Football is a big deal. I mean, it drives me crazy when I'll watch a game on a Monday night and they're like, this player has the most passing yards on Monday Night Football. Nobody cares. There's nobody who cares.
No,
and
because
it's not, it's not the Monday Night Football of like the Cosell days in the 70s. It's just that's not what it is anymore. And ESPN doesn't want to admit that.
That's Sunday nights. The NFL package
Right.
became Sunday night. I mean, anyone
Right.
who really follows it, but ESPN, they have to do what they have to do. They have to sell it. They have to run they have to run the lower third. They have to hype it. It's just the insane machine that is ESPN.
Right.
I want to get into the Super Bowl a little bit with you. We're here with Jimmy Traina, so gracious here on Backchannel. Let's talk a little bit about your watching ritual for the Super Bowl. Like, okay, let's theorize. I don't know. It usually starts at like 6:18 or 6:12 or 6:21 Eastern time. What do you do? Do you plan chores? Do you go see a movie? When do you want to be in the seat watching the Super Bowl?
6:18. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. And it's very, I don't have any exciting. It's very boring. I watch the game by myself because I need to listen to the broadcast because I have to write about it the next morning. So I can't be at a Super Bowl party. I can't have a bunch of people around. I need to be able to listen to what the commentators are saying. So, I mean, I shouldn't say 6:18. You watch the anthem, you watch the coin toss and all that nonsense. But yeah, I don't really put it on much before 6 o'clock.
You don't have to write about that beautiful thing on Joe Burrow and his grandma who got a kidney. You don't have to write about
that. As I said earlier, you can the pregame show is not really anything compelling. So,
however, yesterday halftime CBS was slightly compelling.
It was very compelling.
Yeah, music, Boomer Esiason, and maybe dancing, insanity. That's what we like. I love when the lights went out during Baltimore, San Francisco. I like chaos, and chaos does not mean Lady Gaga falling through the dome, the hole in the dome. I like a little chaos. Now, let me ground that question. Forget the Super Bowl for a second. Who the hell watches 12-1 Fox besides Howie Long's Gardner? Who watches that goddamn show?
Well, more people watch the Fox show than the CBS show or the ESPN show or the NFL Network show. I mean, the Fox show is still the highest rated pregame show. So that's not the one to pick on. But listen, it's the same people, I think, who are watching, CBS at Tuesday night on 9 o'clock. Those people still exist. So there's enough of them. I think the pregame shows get like 2-3 million viewers. They're out there. They're obviously going to be of an older age and they watch.
Now,
I think people are also looking for fantasy tips, weather for fantasy, stuff like that.
I mean, and
fantasy is a big part of it.
Jay Glazer is legit. There's some legit pockets. I remember you and I are probably the same age. I remember when the big thing is they couldn't put the lines. They couldn't bet with a line.
Right.
They would have to. It's like the money line. They would say, Buccaneers beat the Saints. They couldn't work with the spread. And this is not a trapdoor. Do you bet? Do you bet on the game in any way?
Yeah.
Because I want to get into another fun phenomena, the Super Bowl prop bets. Some of my favorite prop bets. What color will the Gatorade be? That's a fun one. How long the anthem will be? That's always a fun one.
I actually just got an email from right before we started it. I got an email from an offshore gambling site that's offering a bet on whether Snoop will smoke weed during the halftime show. So that's where we've gotten.
I like that. Another favorite of mine is how long they'll hold on the word brave at the end of the anthem.
Yes.
Yep. I just want someone to sing and just sing until they have to get the big hook out. Can I ask, and I'm not trying to rat you out. Do you bet on the Super Bowl?
Yes, usually mainly props. I usually don't bet a side or total. It's usually just the coin toss, the over, the national anthem. How many yards will this player have? Yeah, how many touchdowns will this player? Yeah, it's usually the props is what I do for the Super Bowl.
What's the over under on Kevin Hart commercials? I feel like this guy's going to be in every gosh damn commercial I've ever
I don't
seen.
know. I mean, that's the other thing. I don't watch. I'm probably the only person in America. I don't watch the commercials.
Okay. Now,
When I don't watch commercials ever. Even as a kid, I just if in this day and age, if I'm watching something and a commercial comes on, I go right to my phone and I'm scrolling through Twitter. So I don't pay attention to commercials ever.
and follow Jimmy on Twitter, by the way. Jimmy,
Yeah.
we're paisans, man. You're lying to me, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove you why. I'm going to play for you. Travis, producer, is going to play my all-time favorite Super Bowl commercial right now for you. I still haven't slept well after seeing this. So, Travis, you play it, and then we'll bounce back to the talk, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I still haven't slept after this. Producer Travis, whenever you're ready, under your sound blanket or whatever other kind of form of camouflage, because I know you secretly are ready to see Steve Buscemi. He's going to bowl against Peyton Manning. I know that's a big one on your list.
This year?
Yeah,
Oh.
because they teased. Well, no, I'm talking about all time. We're going to show you one from all time, but
Okay.
they teased the hell out of these commercials. Like they were teasing them during the championship games. They teased this one of Steve Buscemi cleaning bowling shoes, and apparently he's going to bowl against Peyton Manning on Super Bowl Sunday. That doesn't
for this Super Bowl is what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay.
Does that excite you? Peyton Manning
No.
bowling against Steve Buscemi? No,
Not if it's a commercial for something. Like if they were doing it on their own, I might be interested.
not even the Puppy Bowl or the Bud. Remember the helmets? No, that didn't do anything. That didn't do anything.
I guess the one thing I enjoyed was, I mean, I don't know if you remember that. I'm sure you do. Was there was a couple of years there where In Living Color would do their own halftime show up against the Super Bowl when it was on Fox.
Right. So Travis, are you hearing me? Play this clip for Jimmy, and it will take him back to the bad old days. Go ahead, Travis.
And I might just chill tonight.
Puppy monkey baby. 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 Puppy monkey baby.
Mountain Dew Kickstart. Dew, juice, caffeine.
Puppy monkey baby.
Okay, you remember that? Come on, you remember Puppy
I have
Monkey
never
Baby.
seen that commercial in my life.
It was, you know why? Because you were at the Super Bowl that year. I think that was no, it wasn't. It was Denver.
I've never been to a Super Bowl.
Sorry, it was Denver. I was thinking you almost went to the Denver Seattle. It was Denver, Carolina. It was the year after when they won. You've never seen that commercial? Can you unsee? You can't unsee it though. Now you cannot unsee it.
I can easily unsee it. I'm good at blocking things out. I'll never think about that again as long as I live.
Well, what I don't understand, we'll get off commercials for a second. What I don't understand is these companies pay billions and millions of dollars on commercials and run them once. I always wonder.
And I'll tell you what else has happened too. You talk about spending. They all release their commercials early. I think 90% of the commercials are out way before the Super Bowl because I get them emailed to me. I'll get a commercial emailed to me every day for the next 2 weeks that it's supposed to air in the Super Bowl.
Oh my God, man.
From a PR company. Yeah, they release them all beforehand now.
What do the companies want you as a voice and face and words for SI? What they want you to promote them? Or?
They want me to put the commercial in my column because I write a daily column. So they want it in there.
I always, I'll get off commercials in a second. I always look for trends. It's interesting. I was talking about film festivals earlier in the show, and I think like Sundance has these unofficial trends, like movies about the war are good, or like, commercials. Right. I was reading somewhere that they said this year companies are tired of the kumbaya. You're going to see less kumbaya because I remember the last couple of years with COVID, it's been a little bit more, less irony, less like, pies in the face.
Right. Let's all be nice to each other. We're going to die.
Yeah. I kind of like, where do you fall? Do you want like fart humor or do you want like marshmallows around a campfire?
In the commercials,
Yeah.
I don't want any commercials. I just wish commercials were eliminated. I don't want any commercials. I don't care what they are. I'd rather see the field for the 3 minutes that they go to commercial.
Play the live feed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, then what about the Super Bowl halftime? I know you're a Mary J. Blige fan. I know that.
I am. I am.
I mean, she's great. I was teasing, but what do
Yeah.
you think about Eminem, Dr. Dre, like something you didn't know you were asking for them to all get back together? Do you think about those things? Are you excited about Dre and Snoop?
Yeah, I mean, am I excited? Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's better than, um, it's a better option than a lot of things they've had in the past. And, I'll watch here. I never like any halftime show for this reason. I'll tell you this is just a personal thing. What I hate about the halftime show and what I hate about when you're at a wedding, a bar mitzvah, whatever it is, and the DJ plays like 30 seconds of a song and it ends and then they go to the next song. They never play a full song. That's what the
Yeah.
Super Bowl is. And I hate that. It gets, yeah. So like, I love the song Real Love by Mary J. Blige, but I know I'm going to hear 20 seconds of it. Eminem might do Stan. You're going to hear 20 seconds of it. So it bums me out every time there's a Super Bowl show and that happens.
Can you imagine the conversation between the exec and the late Prince? You have to play a montage. Prince probably said, "What's a montage?" I mean, yeah.
No, I have a feeling Prince dictated that halftime show pretty much.
And people
he
still
did what he
think of that
wanted.
one as like one of the great recent ones, actually.
Oh, I think it's the best one by far that
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
In our closing credenza, I wanted to just do some quick hitters with you. Stuff I've always wanted to know. One, in no particular order. One, I'm always fascinated. Lambeau Field, the link, Philadelphia. Let's say Heinz Field in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. That's Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. Just to clear that up. You always see when they cut to the announcers, they're wearing big coats, and I'm thinking, can anybody put heat in these damn booths? Like now. Is that just for show? They turn off the heat to show that Al Michaels is in the huddle? Or not to pick on Al Michaels, but why are announcers always cold in these multi-billion-dollar places?
Because they leave the window open. The windows are open during the game. They're not in an enclosed booth. The booth is open. So if it's cold, I had Jim Nance on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he said, he just threw it out there that when they do the games at Arrowhead for the Chiefs, he said the booth is like 20 degrees colder than it is outside. It's like a freezing cold booth.
That's awful.
So, and like I said, the windows for the booths are open during the game, so that's why they're cold.
Come on. Forget SoFi because it's a dome, but we got to do better than that. I mean, it's funny. These stadiums age quickly. Heinz is no longer a new stadium, and Lambeau is Lambeau. It's like the old Boston Garden, but it's always a peccadillo of mine. A couple of quick hitters. I was just thinking about Al Michaels, just to go back to Al. What is his motivation? And I'm fascinated because he's done everything. He's on the Mount Rushmore. And it's funny, in a way, I think if you put a gun to his head, not that you'd want it, he'd say, I'm a baseball man. Like I'm an old, I'm a Reds announcer. He's just, that's like his thing that never got back to him. But I guess my question is, I always find it a little funny. Al is playing, because I agree with you. I think his agent or him or somebody's passing a note to ESPN, match this price. But shouldn't Al just do something he really likes to do? I know that sounds so naive, but isn't it a little silly on some level that we're doing the shadow boxing over someone like Al Michaels?
Well, I mean, listen, there's a couple of things here. I think Al still loves doing the NFL, and if you're Al Michaels, you're going to do an NFL game. 30 million people are going to watch it. You're going to have the top-rated telecast every week. There's a thing there. There's a rush there, I'm sure. I think also Al doesn't want to be pushed out by NBC. I think that's a factor in it. And, he's still as good as his job as ever. I mean, his skills have not diminished at all. So I think if that's the case, you don't want to get pushed out. And I think that's why there's some pushback there.
And would Collinsworth stay? And this is all speculation, us talking. Would Collinsworth stay? I mean, who would, if they break up the band, they're not going to give him Sean Payton, for Christ's sakes. I mean,
it looks like he's going to stay. There are original reports that NBC wanted to replace, Michaels and Collinsworth with Mike Tirico and Drew Brees, who they hired last year. And they do the Notre Dame football games for NBC. But, Brees had a playoff game this year. He did the, I think it was Bengals Titans, and was really, really, really rough. I mean, he is not ready for that assignment at all. So I have a feeling that Chris is going to stay and not go anywhere for a while now because of that.
What do you think Sean Payton's gonna do? I mean, is he gonna do color or something in the studio if he go I mean, he's gonna go to broadcasting.
I don't know. I don't know if he'll do games or if he'll do studio. I have no idea. I think, it's so early in it all that I'm not sure what a network would want to do with him. I have no idea if he's going to be good. I don't have this burning desire to like hear Sean Payton call games. If Brady retires, that's a whole different story. I would love to see Brady call games.
Oh, but they said that about Joe Montana, and he was awful. Montana was awful.
He was, but I think Brady has a lot. His personality is way better than Joe Montana's. If you've seen Brady over the past year since he got out of New England,
Yeah.
and he's been sort of freed up, and he's got his radio show, he's got his ESPN show, he's on social media, he's been doing a ton of interviews. He's got a personality that's way better than Joe Montana's.
Speaking of which, as we say goodbye, what about Al Michaels and Peyton Manning for ESPN?
I think that will not happen because Peyton does not want to do 17 weeks of games. That's why he's doing the Manning cast now. ESPN wanted him badly, and he just does not want to do games every week. If you saw it this year, the Manning cast, 10 weeks. That was it. That's the setup for the next 2 years as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a dollar amount that ESPN can throw at Peyton to make him do 17 weeks a year, but Peyton Manning does not want to do 17 weeks of NFL football. And now with the Manning cast being a pretty big success, I have a feeling he's going to really be just staying with that and doing games the traditional way is not going to happen.
Isn't it interesting? And I'm just going to use that as our last goodbye. This decentralization of sports media, in a sense, like if you look at the Nickelodeon cast that did really well. Forget, that I don't know if you saw that ESPN Avengers thing. That was a goddamn train wreck. Pardon my language. But the Nickelodeon cast was kind of interesting. The Peyton Manning thing. But is that the wave, or do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Networks are looking into these kind of Frankenstein monster versions of broadcasting? Do you think that's kind of the next wave?
I think alternate broadcasts are definitely the way of the future. I think every network's going to try them. From whether you actually, like you mentioned, the Nickelodeon, which was sort of a traditional game broadcast, but for kids, to a Manning cast where it's more of a conversation during the game, you're going to see tons more of it. It's going to be all over the place.
Yeah, I wish I could slime you before you say goodbye, like a Nickelodeon cast. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, man, I know you're super busy, and I know it is Monday. Yes or no to say goodbye? This isn't a yes or no, but do you like this time of year with the Super Bowl? Is it kind of like?
I find it very depressing because it's over. It's over. Football's over, and that's depressing.
But what about pitchers and catchers? Does that make you excited?
Yeah, that gets me excited, and I'm a huge Yankee fan, and I look forward to that. But there's still nothing like the NFL season.
Jimmy's a great follow on Twitter. Please follow him. Following along during the championship games yesterday was great. Hey, Jimmy, thanks so much. I know it's busy time of year. Thank you, and enjoy.
No problem.
Try to enjoy your Super Bowl, and try to block out that baby monkey, puppy baby monkey.
It's already been blocked. It's
Okay,
already been
cheers.
blocked.
Jimmy, thanks for being here. I
having me.
appreciate
I
it.
appreciate
Take care,
it.
man.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Okay.
Whoa. Lots of comments coming in during that. We went back to back. I just want to welcome everybody. We have a half an hour together. Freddie joined the stream. First time. Walter is on the stream. I hope they can swim. Get it? Stream, swim. See what I did there? Grass Puddle wants life. What, Grass Puddle, what do you want Jimmy to be commissioner of? Is that like being the boss of you? ELP Film says, what? No commercials? ELP, I mean, wouldn't that, we have that with TiVo. Don't you like that? Don't you like having no commercials? This show has no commercials. I think it should have a commercial. Should have deep roots in the censorship genre. Based on what I've seen of Hal, and Hal will be back tomorrow, so fear not. If you're thinking, Hal, where did your hair go? I'm Hal's pal Rob. If you're thinking, Hal, you could have shaved today, say that into your device. Now, let me talk to you about what I did today when I shaved. I'm at an age where I call it strategic shaving because I want to direct your eye to certain pockets of hair and I want to deflect your glance from other pockets of hair. Greg S says commercials are the only reason I watched the Super Bowl. Hey, what did you think of Baby Puppy Monkey? I'm shocked that Jimmy didn't watch commercials. That's like a superpower. Like, h- do you? Like, how can you do some TM, some transcendental meditations during the Super Bowl? You know, backing up here on this theme of unofficial holidays, it's depressing me. These two concepts, beginning and ending of things are always tough. Super Bowls are an ending. The Oscars are a beginning, and that's kind of what I remember about the Oscars. Just to go back to the Oscars a little bit, I know when I was younger watching the Oscars and thinking, "Oh my god, tomorrow I'm going to write my screenplay." So in a way, there's something aspirational about the Oscars. I don't think Yes, the Super Bowl is aspirational too. You can have a young person say, "I wanna be in a Super Bowl where Mary J. Blige sings for an hour and there's smoke games." So these aspirational parts of both these ideas, both its unofficial holidays are kind of where it's at. Um, but I also think there's so much it's like a chore. The Super Bowl is like a chore. I'm with Jimmy. If I know the Super Bowl is coming on 6:21, I'm going to sleep a little later. I'm going to eat lunch a little late. And I'm going to eat lunch early because I'm going to eat a lot for the Super Bowl, but I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get coffee. I may even sneak in a movie because I know I could do so much before the Super Bowl kicked off. Now, if you're living in Hawaii in the United States, um, the Super Bowl starts at noon. So it's kind of nice because you're kind of done by 4 and you can like do some basic human things at night. Greg S says baby puppy monkey is the stuff that nightmares are made of. Greg, I am picking up what you're putting down. ELP Film says the Oscars are aspirational and a bit daunting. That is so true. It's interesting. I don't know if you remember. This is another part of the incredible short-term memory of the Oscars. Do you remember who won last year? Don't look. Do you remember who won? Hey, Travis, producer Travis, are you around? Do not look this up if you're around. Or if you are listening on the chat, put in the chat. Do you know who won Best Picture? I, it was a great thing that this film won because Owen Gleiberman was talking about the different boxes a film has to check, ideally crossing over, autistic, daring. And the winner last year, another box was it was a foreign film, Parasite. And I was really happy. I had seen Parasite a couple months before the Oscars, and it was great. I really liked it. It was great. I know the filmmaker was one of my favorite filmmakers in general. Seeing it was great and winning an Oscar. I mean, I just kind of had I kind of passively recorded that it won because I thought that's interesting. But I think the thing that the pain points of watching an Oscar telecast is it kind of used to matter more. It kind of used to matter. I think it's not an appointment. It's not a religion. Film isn't. Like watching these things is completely decentralized. Sports is not. Sports is not decentralized. Sports is front and center. Darla uh, from New York, I believe, says, I think you can combine Baby Puppy Monkey and ask him to host the Oscars. Now, Darla, I've heard some good ideas in my time. I've heard some bad ideas in my time. That's next level. Baby Puppy Monkey to host. Now, a diaper change may be needed because monkeys must wear diapers. And there are a couple of reasons. One, it's not safe for work to tell you. The other is, you know, why most babies do. But I'll let you research the other reason why monkeys wear diapers. That's really tomorrow's theme with Hal. Grass Puddle wants to go next level, and have Baby Puppy Monkey host the Oscars, which now must happen, and lick the winners. I actually think Baby Puppy Monkey should lick the envelopes because if we're really going to be pragmatic about licking, lick the envelopes and lick the winners. I actually think even if they brought back, Chris Rock should lick the winners, or Kanye. Yeah, I just think there's something about making these events as awful as possible that will draw me back to them. I'm drawn to those things, not like a moth to a flame, more like a car crash in Wild at Heart. There's a great scene of a car crash in David Lynch's Wild at Heart, and it's beautifully staged. It's a really slow kind of pan tracking shot, and that's really what Oscars are at their best. They're car crashes, and I can only hope for car crash. The problem is, I'll know the next day if I had missed something or should I have watched it. Um, Riyadh is on. Riyadh is likes our shows a lot. I think I've seen him on many of these shows before, like always contributing, always saying something. Here it's "What's up, Rob?" I mean, I don't know how long it took him to craft that comment. It's good. I think he's better than that though. Alex, how are you? Is new. How are you and how are you? I like when you double down on your comments, like "What's up, Rob?" followed by another "What's up, Rob?" Now I know these devices are tricky to talk into. This is my device, and sometimes you could say something like "What's up, Rob?" and it could say "What are you eating, Ron?" Like, I know sometimes I have this problem when I go and get a drink. They say, "What's your name?" And I say, "Rob." I have to spell it ROB because sometimes it sounds like Ron. And then I become the jerk because the person who's writing my name on the cup says, "I know how to spell Rob." How did I become the jerk when I'm trying to make your job easier? I'm just trying to get great coffee at high prices. And we're arguing about phonetics here. Um, all this to say, I won't be watching the Oscars. It's not some statement. It's just like time is the greatest commodity we have. Um, I will be watching the football, the Super Bowl, but selectively. Like I actually don't care about the commercials. I will say one thing. There was a time, and Owen alluded to this in our first hour. There was a time where everything was not everywhere. So, and this is still the case. What's interesting, one of the biggest investors in Super Bowl commercials are still Hollywood studios. I remember watching, I forgot which game, but I remember watching the Super Bowl and seeing this amazing clip of Sylvester Stallone jumping off a snowy cliff with tethered to a rope, and will he make it, will he not make it, commercials over. That was Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger is an amazing movie. It is a hidden gem. Rennie Harlan, I think, directed. Great movie. John Lithgow is incredible villain. Michael Rooker is great. It's just a great film. So I remember, oh right, that's why studios pay a lot of money. They put little teases. I'm sure we're going to see 14 different Batman commercials during the Super Bowl. And if you go to YouTube, you'll already see little Batman-esque commercials, that like commercialings that are being hatched by DC. Enough, we got it. The Riddler's wearing a green hefty bag. We got it. The Penguin looks cool, by the way. I want to see this Penguin thing. Okay, Travis, are you around? Even if you're not around, I want to do one segment that Hal always does. Travis, producer Travis, I need what's that thing like you put a collar around the dog's neck? Not that you're a dog, Travis, but like like an invisible fence collar. Has Hal suggested that yet for you? Like an invisible fence collar?
You mean sort of like a boundary, like
Yes.
as if I were on house arrest by the neck? That's where we're going with this. All right,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
a dog would say. Like if a dog could talk, like, why am I under house? Why can't you use my paw? Why my neck? My neck is an important vestige. Okay, so I want to honor you because I love your pal Hal. I love the show. I love you guys together. I love Sound Blankets. I want to do one. Our last topic is in honor of you. You guys do a rejected idea, rejected segment, right? Is that what you do?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to do in our last 10 minutes together a rejected substitute host idea segment. See what I did there? I just spinned it around and flipped it. Okay, so basically, I know I wasn't your first choice to host for Hal. I know I wasn't even on the list, and I wrote the list, and I wasn't, So let's just get that out of the way. So, supercalifragilistic joined. Now, is this your first time? I can't believe that. That name just sounds too perfect to use. I'm sure it's my mom in Avatar. Anyway, so here, Travis, if you're still watching, here are my rejected hosts. These are the hosts I think you guys wanted. Okay, my first rejected host to replace Hal today was one of the worst co-hosting Oscar duos ever.
Really?
James Franco and Anne Hathaway. You know these. Do you know these two actors?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay. One of their careers is not doing so well. What is, you know,
She's fine. What are you talking about? What's wrong
I'm
with
talking
Anne?
about the other guy, the other one.
Oh.
So 2011, some marketing whiz put these two together, and it's an amazing. You got to go on YouTube. And oh, by the way, Backchannel's on YouTube, and you should hit subscribe to YouTube. Put your petty differences aside with YouTube long enough to subscribe to this network. Okay, if you want Travis to have more sound blankets, you subscribe today. Okay, we're done. That was a monologue for the upcoming Robert Duvall one man play
Nice.
at the Geffen Playhouse. But so James Franco and Anne Hathaway, I think you guys asked them, but the first time had gone so bad. Do you remember inviting them or no? No.
Well, we had him on the short list, and then I remember, thank goodness, you drudged up this. Well, honestly, it gives baby puppy monkey a run for its money.
See, one of the bits, if you can look, if you can't, now that image is burned into your eyes.
Yeah.
So one of the amazing bits these two brainstormed was James Franco dressed as Marilyn Monroe to make a series of irrelevant jokes about how Marilyn Monroe was 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. And that's a great idea, said nobody. So it's amazing. You got to YouTube them because the word on the street is that James Franco was high. Now this isn't a great stretch, but they're or maybe she was high, because I think in the monologue, one of her first lines, Anne Hathaway looks at the crowd and says, "Wow, you're all real." Now that's something that I usually say on a Saturday night when I'm staring at a glass and I've had, a couple of moments, private moments. So, but Travis, I know you're busy today, but watch that. It is Trainwreck 101ology.
Absolutely.
The other rejected host is Chris Cuomo, because he's out of a job. Did you guys reach out to Chris Cuomo?
Well, we were gonna, but it said he was. Not only did we think against it after, he's in some he's dealing with some stuff, but also he couldn't do it because it would interfere with his unemployment, and then you have to fill out a whole other thing, and it would have messed with the tax form. So yeah,
HR would have called it. And I think he owes Hal money. Like, it's a weird, pretzel-y
game of horseshoes, $500.
Rockhole. We used to play Rockhole on the set of movies. You throw a rock.
What is Rockhole?
I will diagram it only on a napkin. A cocktail napkin can it be diagrammed. You can't find Rockhole. But I just want to also say, before I tell you the last rejected host idea and say goodbye, Grayson is on the stream. Is it Dick Grayson, aka Robin? I hope so. Kathy is on the stream. That sounds like somebody's mom's name, and I don't mean to diss Kathy. I love the name, Kathy.
Oh.
Kathy's Clown. Remember that song from the Jukebox?
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a really nice list of people. I love the geographies of it. That must be fun for you guys to look at where everyone is coming from. I love that. I should watch this show, shouldn't I? God,
yeah.
What am I doing? Before we say goodbyes, the last rejected substitute host idea. I don't know if you knew of this, Travis. Actually, they were going to do 3 hosts. I'm going to tell you the 3 hosts, and you tell me what they all have in common. Ready?
Sure.
The 3 hosts were Andrew Dice Clay,
Got it.
Martin Lawrence,
All right.
and Adrian Brody. You were going to have them all together. Now, what do these 3 hosts have in common?
They're all banned from SNL.
Oh my God! Yeah! Give that man a sound blanket.
All right, $40 at Home Depot.
That would be aisle 21. You ever try to find something in Home Depot? Different conversation for a different day. There's like aisle 21A and aisle 21B, and dude, just can you walk over there with me? I mean, are your legs broken?
And they don't know either. They just kind of go, yeah, there.
It's like an Italian giving directions. Where's the Tower of Pisa? It's back there. Okay, I could say that because I've lived in Italy and I've asked for the Tower of Pisa. They say, yeah, it's over there. Anyway, so I just want to say, yes, ring a ding ding. Andrew Dice Clay and Martin Lawrence for cursing excessively. And the Andrew Dice Clay monologue you can't find on YouTube, but the Martin Lawrence one you can. What's interesting is they cut it up and they put a little like disclaimer in it. They kind of made a joke out of it. But it was so profane because obviously Saturday Night Live is plausibly live. Saturday Night Live is ahead of real time, but also if something's going wrong, SNL will drop in something from the dress rehearsal. So that's why before the live show, they tape a full dress rehearsal. So if something's going south, they drop in a scene. But
Right.
so with Martin Lawrence, they basically put up a disclaimer. Adrian Brody, do you know why Adrian Brody was banned?
This is actually how I got to my answer. I didn't know. I now remember Andrew Dice. I didn't know Martin Lawrence, but whenever somebody brings up what did Adrian Brody do wrong, there's only one thing they're talking about. And it's this thing. It is when you go ahead. You
go ahead. It's your show. You go ahead.
Oh, well, Adrian Brody did a opening monologue. It was the musical guest bit, and
Right.
goodness, who was the musical guest?
Sean Paul.
Paul.
Yeah.
And he came out in a Rastafarian headpiece,
Right.
complete with no. It was just the fake dreads. He had fake dreads and had a wildly offensive accent monologue about respecting your neck and just a really insensitive play on like
Super cliche accent to introduce him, and you could see some of the gesticulations in the. I have tried, because I don't live much of a life. I've tried to find a clip. This is like this, Jerry Lewis, the late actor, made a film about being a clown in a concentration camp, and it's one of the most famous movies never seen. Apparently Jerry Lewis played it at a party for friends. No one's ever seen it. Harry Shearer claims to have seen it. My point is, there's like 5 things no one has ever really seen, and one of them is him introducing Sean Paul in this awful way. Another one that I was thinking that was interesting. I love when musical guests are banned, and I'm not just talking about Ashley Simpson because she can't, whatever she did, a hoedown.
Lip-syncing.
Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they took Steve Forbes, terrible choice as a guest host. Forbes was hosting, and Rage Against the Machine was musical guest. And I think what they did is they had American flags hung upside down. And they did a kind of, I don't know what the song was, but any of their songs were
Bulls on Parade was
Bulls on
one
Parade.
of
I mean, Rage Against the Machine, you hadn't heard of, not that I know much, but I think we're going to see a union. I think we're going to see them back on the road again. But
they had a whole tour planned. They had to scrap when COVID hit.
See how on top of things are? I get the news once it's happened, then report it as if it's about to happen. You see how I do that?
Yeah,
Travis?
Yeah.
Speaking of news, this was fun. I mean, I'm not sure it was great fun for you, Travis.
Are you kidding me?
But now it's nice to sit in Captain James T. Kirk's chair every once in a while. Okay, before we go away, you want to be a hotshot. What is James T. Kirk? What does the T stand for?
Oh, I am by no means a Trekkie. At that, nope, nothing.
Tiberius.
Right.
What is Stewie Griffin's nickname? Middle name. What is Stewie Griffin's middle name?
Middle name, no idea.
Gilligan. Okay, I want to thank everybody, and keep the change on those. I want to thank everybody for being with your pal Hal here on Backchannel. Backchannel is 12 hours a day of live content of an amazing kind of different styles, different shows, different ideas. But really, the charisma and what makes this whole thing jam and different is Travis. No, what makes this jam and different is that you get to contribute, and sometimes with guest heavy shows it's a little harder, and I did a terrible job, but I saw all your comments and I worked in the non-profane ones and the ones that didn't bash people, because I'm a good guy in some theoretical universe, in the Spideyverse. But I want to encourage you to keep tuning into our shows. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit subscribe, backchannel.tv. Get involved, get one of these devices, talk to it, tell it your hopes and fears. Tiberius, Rob Schaefer, who again is like me, will tell you the correct answer once I've already said it. I want to thank Travis. I want to thank all the people at Backchannel, not just the people you see on screen every day, the people you don't see every day. They're really smart people, like writing and coding and supporting. Travis, I think, just quit the show. Travis, it's okay, we'll take your there was a pink slip coming. You should be able to send pink emails when you're firing hiring somebody like a pink slip. I want to thank all the coders and all the programmers and all the architects behind the scenes. I want to thank you all. I want you to come back. Maybe I'll see you on the show. Maybe I'll see you on another show. Maybe I'll see you at the mall. Because I said we're going to tell people we met at the mall. And that's when we ran into Travis buying another sound blanket at Guitar Center. Do you see how we connect the dots here? I want to thank you. That was fun. Thank you, Owen Gleberman. Thank you, Jimmy Traina. Thank you all. See you tomorrow. Your pal Hal.